Good morning to you all. This is Mr. Rao. I welcome you all for one more interesting session of human digestive system. In my previous classes, I explained in detail about the various types of digestive glands. In today's session, we would like to study about these gastric glands. These gastric glands are actually present in the wall of your stomach, just beneath your epithelium. This is actually the location of this one. They are all present in the wall of the gaster or the stomach. That too underneath the epithelium is one important thing. When you see these gastric glands, they are all the numerous, means more in their number, microscopic, very small in their size, and tubular structures they are all. And coming to these gastric glands, based on the location they are all present in the wall of the stomach, they are all categorized into three different types. One of the gland present in your stomach is known as cardiac gland, whereas the second type of gland is known as the pyloric gland, and the third type of gland is known as fundic glands or auxintic glands. Right? Why? What is the reason for giving these various names to these gastric glands? As I said, as we already studied the structure of the stomach, right? It is a J-shaped muscular structure that you know very well, and it has got the various parts on it. And this is a portion of the stomach which we call it as cardiac stomach, right? And whereas this is the portion which we call it as fundus or fundic stomach. And this area is known as pyloric stomach. These are the three areas. My point is, if you see the internal portion of the stomach, it is trained into here many folds, and all these folds are known as gastric rugae. These are all what I am here drawing, or the gastric rugae. So these glands are actually present in these locations. See that some of these gastric glands are located in this cardiac portion of your stomach. Hence all these glands are known as cardiac glands. Whereas certain type of glands are present in the pyloric region, right? This is the pyloric region of the stomach. Hence they are all present in the pyloric region. Then those glands are known as thyroid glands. Whereas the major portion, the body of the stomach, this area is called. Then there you can see certain type of gastric glands which are all named as fundic or auxintic glands. Clear? Right. When you see these gastric glands, they naturally produce a juice or a secretion of this gastric gland is known as the gastric juice. It is an important point. When you see this gastric gland here produce this gastric juice, almost all, see this 2000 milliliters to 3000 milliliters of the gastric juice is produced per a day. It's an important point. Almost all 2 to 3 liters of the gastric gland or gastric juice is secreted into your stomach by these gastric glands. When you see this gastric juice, it has got a pH of 0.9 to 0.1. It is very important thing. That means the acidity of this gastric juice is too high. It is highly acidic juice it is, because the pH value it lying in between 0.9 to 1.8. So this is an important point to be noted. Whereas when you see this gastric juice, as I said here, the gastric glands, they're all various types and where they're all present. Let us see now. When you see these gastric glands, as I said here, the first type of gland is known as the cardiac glands. These cardiac glands actually produces here the mucus. Then what is the use of this mucus? Mucus actually protects the inner layer of the wall, particularly the stomach. Actually here innerly has got the mucus, a membrane, and this mucous membrane actually exposed to the highly concentrated hydrochloric acid. Since this hydrochloric acid is attacking or it's showing its effect on the wall, right, it will be get damaged. So in order to protect the inner wall of your stomach, naturally the mucus which is gets secreted by the cardiac glands that protects us. That is one of the most important function of this mucus. Whereas the second type of glands, it includes the pyloric glands. Apart from the mucus, these pyloric glands secrete another important hormone also, which we call it as the gastrin. So this is an important function of these pyloric glands. One material that is produced is the mucus. Apart from that, an important hormone, that gastrin, is secreted by these pyloric glands. Whereas the third type of glands, it includes the fundic glands or auxintic glands. When you see these fundic and auxintic glands and their secretions, the important secretion includes within that is hydrochloric acid. Just now I said that the gastric juice is highly acidic because of the presence of this the acid, that is hydrochloric acid. Along with that, it has got one important factor which we call as here Castle's intrinsic factor. It has got a very important role in absorption of a kind of vitamin that present in our diet, food material. Nothing but B12 vitamin is an important vitamin that present in our food diet, and that must get absorbed into your bloodstream after completion of a digestion. For that, the Castle's intrinsic factor, which is present in your gastric juice, that is get secreted by your fundic glands or auxintic glands. So that is an important role of this one. Clear? And along with these three, you can see it also here produces a certain kind of other material or other here enzymes also. Gastric lipase as well as gastric amylase, or the two more enzymes which are all get secreted by these cells. Here I just mentioned that they do secrete some other digestive enzymes also, right? So let us see all these types of digestive enzymes secreted by this one. When you see these three types of glands, these three types of glands are actually made up of or formed by three important types of cells. Here the point to be noted, the three whatever I said just now are all glands, but I am focusing on the types of the cells. So these glands have got three different types of cells are there. Now I am going to give you the list of these three different types of cells, thereafter the structure of the gastric gland and the respective secretions of the three different types of cells. Clear? See, the three different types of cells that are all present in the three different types of gastric glands. Among them, the first one, it includes the chief cells, which we otherwise known as the peptic cells also. And they do have got another name. We call it as actually gymogenic cells. The reason for giving this name to these cells, they do produce gymogens, a kind of proenzymes. That is the reason why they have given the another name like gymogenic cells. And whereas the second type of cells, it includes here auxintic cell or parietal cells. Auxintic or parietal cells is the second type of cells. Whereas the third type of cells includes neck cells or the mucous cells. Even they do have got another name which we call it as goblet cells. Goblet cell is the third type of cells. Now I'd like to give you the secretions of all these three different types of cells. The first and foremost one, when you see the chief or peptic cells, here they do produce a kind of proenzymes. Here the proenzymes, it includes, see this, a kind of proenzymes will be get secreted by this. The proenzymes are actually inactive enzymes which are not in the active state. So they must be get activated by some other factors in your digestive tract. And here the examples of the proenzymes that are all get secreted by the chief or peptic cells, it includes here pepsinogen is one type of enzyme. And it is an inactive one. Later on it get here transferred into pepsin, which is an active enzyme. And thereafter it includes prorenin, is another important proenzyme. And these two are actually here inactive enzymes. But the very important point related to this proenzyme, that is prorenin, this prorenin is only produced in the here young infants or only young ones only, or in young mammals this is get produced. Whereas this pro-enzyme, that is prorenin, is not get secreted in the adult mammals. This is an important point. In adult mammals, it is not get produced. The reason for that, actually, this is an enzyme, it acts on the milk proteins only. So only young mammals feed on the milk as their principal food. Actually, that must be get digest. For that, it requires an enzyme known as prorenin. Point clear? And whereas here adult mammals, they do feed on the substitute food in spite of the depending upon the milk, so that there is no need of the prorenin to all of these. That is the reason why this is actually produced only in the young mammals, whereas the production of this prorenin is get stopped in the adult mammals. Clear? This is the one thing. When you see actually all these and the cells, as I said, they are all present in actually the gland, that is gastric gland. I'll tell even that I will give you the structure of the gastric gland and even all the cells also. And next to that, when you see, apart from this gastric here, the cells, they are all chief or peptic cells, produce gastric lipase. Lipase is an enzyme which acts on the lipids or the fats. Since this lipase is get released by the gastric gland, we call it as gastric lipase. Along with that, gastric amylase is also there. Gastric amylase is another enzyme which acts on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. Gastric lipase acts on fats or the lipids. But there is a very interesting point related to this one. Though the gastric amylase is released into your stomach, the digestion of the carbohydrates will not be taken place. Why? What is the reason for that? I said the gastric juice has got highly acidic nature. At a high acidic nature, it inhibits the function of the gastric amylase. Is the point clear? So when the bit is asked in such a way that which of the following nutrient is not digested in your stomach, then the carbohydrate will not be get digested in your stomach. But the point is, your gastric juice has got the gastric amylase which can act on the carbohydrates. The reason for that, just now as I said here, the highly acidic condition of the gastric juice, the gastric amylase action will be inhibited. Inhibited means suppressed because of here a highly concentration of this gastric juice. I said the pH value is here 0.9 to 1.8. So this is a highly acidic condition. So in this condition, it is highly impossible to this gastric amylase to show its action on the carbohydrates for digestion of these carbohydrates. It's an important thing. Clear? Right. This is all about the first and foremost important cells present in your gastric gland. Whereas the second important cells, it includes auxintic or parietal cells. Let us see more detailedly about that. The second type of cells, it includes your auxintic cells or parietal cells. These two actually produce a kind of here acid known as hydrochloric acid. It's a very important point. And apart from the hydrochloric acid, these cells produce Castle's intrinsic factor. Very important thing. And this Castle's intrinsic factor, as I said just now, here helps for absorption of B12 vitamin from your diet. That is one important thing. B12 vitamin will be absorbed by the action of the Castle's intrinsic factor. Clear? Whereas this is all about this auxintic or parietal cells. When you come to the third one, the neck cells or the mucous cells. The neck cells or mucous cells, here otherwise known as goblet cells. The major function of these goblet cells, they do involve in secretion of the mucus. Large amount of mucus will be get secreted by this. It lubricates actually the chyme present in your stomach, and it actually protects the inner wall of your stomach known as mucosa. Hence we call it as here the mucus. Whereas when you see here, as I said here, they do get produce a bit amount of gastric lipase also. So these are all the three various types of cells that you can happen to see in the gastric gland. Now I do give you the structure of the gastric gland and the type of the cells that are all present within the gastric gland. That followed by certain kind of endocrine cells as well as some amount of stem cells also present in your gastric gland. We will see what are the functions of these two things in a detailed way. Now I do give you the detailed structure of your gastric gland. Clear? Gastric gland, its structure. So these are actually the epithelial cells of your gastric gland. Right, that you can see here all the cells are present. Right, this portion is the opening of the gastric gland. Gastric gland. And this is actually surface epithelium. Surface epithelium of the gastric gland. Then, as I said here, it has got the many cells. Of the many cells at the base of this gland, you can see the first type of glands, which we call them as the chief glands. Right, so these are all chief glands, right? Whereas there you can see just here at its lateral side, you can see the second type of important glands. These are known as Auxintic glands. There you can see. And these glands are known as Auxintic glands. Right, and below area you can see some of the another important glands. These glands are present throughout actually the gland. These are known as mucous glands. Here you can see the mucous glands. Sorry, mucous cells are here, they are known as neck cells. Mucous cells, these are not glands, please, chief cells, and these are also the cells. And all these cells are present in this gland, actually that is gastric gland. Apart from these three varieties of the cells present within that, there you can see two more important cells also present. They are known as endocrine cells. Here you can find out one endocrine cell. There also you can see they are all present at the bottom of the gland. At the bottom of the gland or the base of the gland, you can find out a kind of endocrine cell, and name of this endocrine cell is argentophine cells. Argentophine cells. Clear? And there you can see one more important cell also present here. This is the cell at its extreme bottom or base. You can see this cell is known as G cells or gastrin cells. gastrin cells, these are all. And this portion, you can see the spacious part, the cavity present within that is known as gastric lumen. Gastric lumen, this spacious place. This is all about actually your gastric gland, its structure and various types of the cells present in your gastric gland. And this is actually the surface epithelium of the gastric gland. This is the opening of your gastric gland, and it has got the various types of the cells. Here chief cells, one type of cell, thereafter the auxintic cell, there are, here you can see the third type, mucous cells also. Along with that, endocrine cells are there, which are known as adjunct cells, and as well as here gastrin cells also. Clear? Apart from that, stem cells also present. In the surface epithelium, you can happen to see the stem cells also, the second type of cells within that. So this is all about the structure of your gastric gland. Now I'd like to give you the detailed information regarding these adjunct cells as well as the gastrin cells present in your gastric gland. Clear? Right. Now let us study detailedly about the endocrine cells present in your gastric gland. As I said, the endocrine cells present in the gastric gland are of two types. One is known as here the adjunct cells, and these adjunct cells actually produces the hormones like serotonin, somatostatin, thereafter histamine. Three different types of hormones will be secreted by these adjunct cells. And coming to here, the function of this serotonin. What is its function? This serotonin acts like a vasoconstrictor. What does that mean? Actually, it acts on your blood vessels. You feel it as your blood vessel, right? It acts like a vasoconstrictor. That means they do here act on the smooth muscles present in the wall of your blood vessels and helps for decreasing the diameter of your blood vessel. This is the diameter of your blood vessel will be get decreased. One thing. And just now, as I said, this is a hormone act on the smooth muscles. So helps for contraction of the smooth muscles. So the smooth muscles present in the wall results in contraction. Finally here it leads to decreasing the diameter of your blood vessels. Then it is known as vasoconstrictor. Right. Whereas let us see here the function of the somatostatin. Somatostatin is a hormone which here helps for suppress or inhibit the secretion of your digestive tract. Digestive tract hormones here will not be released. Clear? This is one thing. It suppresses the releasing of hormones of your digestive tract. Digestive tract. So that is the important function of this serotonin. Right. Let us come to the histamine. It's a very important thing. It acts like a vasodilator. Just now I said that serotonin is vasoconstrictor, then whereas the histamine is act like a vasodilator. So it has a contrasting function of serotonin. Since actually the serotonin helps for decreasing the diameter, the histamine it acts and it helps for increasing the diameter of your blood vessels. So it is here with a less diameter. This is a blood vessel with a more diameter. So this histamine it acts on your blood vessels, helps for dilation of your blood vessels. So these are all the various functions of the hormones that are all secreted by adjunct cells of your gastric gland. Along with that, here it has got one more important cell also, which we call it as gastrin cell, right? And it has got another name, G cells also. See that? Then what is the function of these gastrin or G cells? This actually helps for releasing of gastrin, a hormone. The one important hormone will be get released by these cells. Then what is its function? This gastrin is a hormone act on the gastric gland and stimulate the gastric gland for secretion of a gastric juice. That is an important point. See this one, it actually here gastrin stimulates the gastric glands and helps for secretion of the gastric juice, right? So my point, this gastrin, it acts on the gastric glands, stimulate it, and here helps for secretion of the gastric juice. This is all about the second important endocrine cell present in your gastric gland. Whereas the next important cells here are the stem cells. They are very important cells. The stem cells are nothing but undifferentiated cells present in the epithelium of your gastric gland. And these cells here nowadays playing a vital role in treating the various types of diseases. And the theory that kind of treatment is known as stem cells here therapy. Stem cells therapy. And these cells here undergoes to cell division, repeated multiple times here. The cell division it takes place so that they can produce the number of cells. And these cells are get replaced the already damaged cells. So these stem cells naturally in your stomach helps for treating or healing the gastric ulcers. So whenever you have these gastric ulcers, that will be get cured or healed by these stem cells. That is the important function of these stem cells. So dear students, this is all about your gastric